Maybe. Oh, wow. I'm a little bright here. It's nighttime, so it's a little different. I'm going to see if somebody, when you can actually see me, if somebody can let me know, because oh, thank you, Alexa. It was just spinning and spinning and spinning. I had to refresh the page. I'm probably blinding you because I look very bright. Hello, everybody. Okay, people can see me. Excellent. Whoa, let's go yellow. I don't normally do a lot of live chats at night, so I guess this is what we're going to work with right now. We're just going to leave it alone and not play with it because my luck, I'll mess with it. And then we're not going to have any image whatsoever. So I know it's Friday night. Many people across the world have other things to do on Friday nights and have a live chat with me. But I've missed talking to people. You know, my niece, who is really like a third child for me, she was only like 3 months older than my son. And anyway, she's just like my child. So it's been her wedding stuff that had, wedding shower interrupted. Then she had to get married last Saturday. And then a friend of the family, he was my boss for a long time. I only just do a couple things for him, but for years and years, I worked for him, and I still do. Again, it's just kind of very minimal now. But he comes in once a year, and so he's coming in tonight. And he's going to be at my mom's, so I have to go over to my mom's and dad. And then tomorrow we're going to be hanging out and going to eat, and then going to a haunted house because last year we went to all my nieces, my daughter, everybody gets together. And we went to a haunted house last year. And so apparently we're going to go to a haunted house this year. Don't know why people do that to me. I enjoy going to, I don't even know if I can say I enjoy them. I've only been to 2 as an adult, and both times they scared the bejesus out of me because we pick very scary ones, in which they whisper your name and grab you and all kinds of stuff, and it doesn't end well. I need to wear Depends to them. That's about how well that goes. But anyway, so I was like, we're going to miss another Saturday, and I didn't even get to talk to you guys last week. So I just thought I'm going to jump on here, and people who can come on are going to come on. People who they do Gentle Fire. The one that I went to for a while, or not last year, but the year before, I went to one, and I guess obviously they listen because we usually go in groups, and so they obviously are listening to people talking, and they also quite obviously know who is the most scared, right? Because they're not stupid and they can see me, and so they do. Like the one, they'll get into this like a really dark place, and then they were like, Kelly. And it was super creepy. I don't appreciate that. Don't touch me. Don't whisper my name. Those are like the 2 things. Don't say my name in creepy voices, and don't touch me. It's in a haunted house. But anyways, so that's what we're doing. I know, but rune class first in the morning, Chris. I know. Who doesn't love to talk about runes? Or have your name whispered creepily in a haunted house. Either way, right? So anyways, that's why we're on randomly tonight, is because I just didn't want to go a whole other week again and not have a conversation. So we're just hanging out tonight instead. It'll be recorded. People can watch it back. So that's what we're doing here tonight. If you have noticed, I found my glasses. Finally, they've been missing for so long. They were in a bag that I only use. I'm a hermit. I really don't go places. But I went and visited my sister Joanna, obviously, while she was sick. And I was clearing out the closet. I was trying to find something else. And I happened to get into this bag that I will take when I go overnight somewhere. And that's where they were. I would never have thought to look there because I don't go anywhere. I would have never thought to look in that place, and I can't even remember what I was looking for when I went into that bag. But for some reason, for the wedding, I got it out to go for Saturday. Yes, Anna Teresa, thank you. Anyway, yeah, because I was going to go all day last Saturday for my niece's wedding. I was going to go get her hair done and go get dressed and take photographs. And so I grabbed that bag so that I could stuff everything in it and get ready at her house. And there were my glasses saying, light shining down from above. Because I was starting to think I was going to have to buy new ones because it was really becoming a problem. My old glasses were not good enough. But anyways, there on my face, and it's so good to be able to see clearly again. So now that we have Reclaiming Life said, I am stateside. There are supposedly rules for performers in non-privately hosted haunted houses that prohibit them from physical contact. There should be. I know that one of the places that we go to, the first place that I went to, it said, I feel like that was a couple years ago. I feel like it said that people will touch. But then I know the one that we went to last year, it said there's no physical contact. So, yeah, I'm going to have to make sure that anyone that I go to has that rule because I don't appreciate it. Don't appreciate it. But it's fun. It's fun with every group of people go in, and it's a lot of fun. And the last place you look, I know, Tammy, and I would never, that's the thing, is I wouldn't have specifically gone there to look for which I didn't. I tore my apartment apart 2-3 times trying to find them. I would have never have thought to look in that bag because I don't go anywhere. There's Miss Nikki on a Friday night. Probably a late Friday night for you. You should be sleeping probably. I know that's the problem, Tammy Pie, is I'm also fun to scare as well. So they start to follow me around because obviously I'm reacting. So that's what everybody says. Just don't react and they won't bother you. I can't not react. I scream, I jump, I pee my pants. It happens. And so they follow me around because they know they're going to get that reaction. Anyways, Chris, not yet. Well, yes, I have. Okay. We're gonna get back on track because this should be for after we talk about ancestors. But this is killing me. I really want to do. Oh, my nails aren't done, and I have like black paint on me. I'm sorry, folks. We're just being loose and relaxed today or tonight. It's killing me. I'm trying to save it for, November is Into the Wild Woods. And so I am I ordered it as soon as I saw Miss Offset's review. I ordered it from her shop because you could get it faster. So I have looked through the cards and I love the guidebook so, so much. But I'm trying to leave it alone and save it for Into the Wild Woods. But I every time I sit down, I want to grab it. So yeah, the card, it's not great. There's been a couple threads about the cardstock. It feels thinner to me now. Somebody put them up against the. I think one of the Good Witches or something. I don't really have a current Llewellyn deck that I use a lot. It feels thinner to me. But when I compare it, this is an old Llewellyn cardstock, which I actually really love. This feels bendier. So it doesn't feel fantastic, but I haven't shuffled it yet either. So it's Llewellyn. I like mass market cardstock. What I really love U.S. Games cardstock, and I also love Los Scarabeo cardstock. Llewellyn is just very hit and miss. I don't know what they're doing there, but it's not wretched, but it's not great. Well worth it anyways, but it feels thinner to me. But somebody put a stack of them next to each other, which I guess I could do with this one. Let's just, then we're going to get back on track. I'm being very bad because we're off of our routine. So I'm being very bad. I apologize to people expecting to stay on target. I apologize, but we will get on target in just a second. So, yeah, technically, and you're not going to be able to see this. I mean, there's no way for me to show you this correctly. Technically, it is slightly wider or taller than this cardstock. So that's what I'll say is it's probably the same thickness, if not a little thicker, but it doesn't feel as good. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes cardstock can feel a little bit more. This almost feels like if I bent it too much, I would bend the paper. So that's kind of, I think, what people may be keying into more than the thickness factor. It's thin, but all Llewellyn cardstock is thin. This is held up. I have rifled the heck out of this. This is one of my oldest decks, and it is in really great condition. I use this a lot. So it holds, it's held, whereas I don't know, I'm not confident that this particular new cardstock will hold, even if it's the same thickness. So anyways, we are going to go back. Let us retract. Let us back up, folks. You're distracting me. All of you are distracting me. We're going to back up here, back up to our topic, because I still want to have a topic. I miss topics, or I love topics. I'm really enjoying these. I can't get that off. It's acrylic paint right at the moment. Anyways, breathing, and coming back to center. The topic for today is ancestors. I just did a walkthrough. It's not posted up yet because I have to edit it, but I just did a walkthrough of the ancestral oracle of the Celts, or the Celts, however you prefer to say that. So I was like, oh, that would be a good topic. It's a topic I work with a lot myself. We talked about, it was an amazing wedding. Miss Selkie trying to distract me again. It was so amazing. Can I show you guys? Can I be really rude? What, can I be rude for 1 second? Can I be a proud mother for a second? I shouldn't probably do this. She would kill me. She would kill me for sure. No. Amanda says no. Anna Teresa got her Judy tokens. I'm going to do it, but then I'll probably delete it because I don't think I want to leave it up because unfortunately, there are some really rude people in the world. I don't want to expose her to that. So, of course, they could be watching right now. I don't believe it. I don't believe that any of you are. I'm going to send you this link, but then I'm going to delete it. So you better click on it relatively quick because then I'm going to delete it. Sorry, folks watching back, because I am not going to subject my daughter to any nastiness. But click on it. Because this just makes me so proud. My niece had wanted my daughter to sing at her wedding for her first dance, for her dance with her new husband. So my daughter recorded this playing the guitar and singing because she didn't want to do it live. So she recorded it to play at the wedding. And that is my beautiful daughter. So yeah. Click it because I'm about to delete it if you want to hear it. But I know I'm very biased. She's my baby girl, and I think she's amazing. I'm going to remove it now. Sorry, I've just had some really nasty things in the past about her, actually, from, things. We're not going to go there. But anyways, I don't want to leave it up. But yes, so that was outside. The wedding was outside, and it was in an old barn. It was a big old barn. amazing. Lights just strung everywhere. So you could sit outside of the barn and you could see them doing their dance up there by themselves while she sang. Yes, you can, Nikki. It's unlisted. It was it was just them underneath all these lights in the barn with her singing, you know, that they played that over the speakers, and it was just amazing. Oh, anyways, so there we go. That's another thing. I've been listening to it like 50,000 times as a proud mama. As a proud mama. Okay, now we're going to go back up because everybody keeps, we usually do so good. So apparently Friday nights, we don't do so good staying on topic. Somebody asked me about the wind. We're going to blame, who was it? Was it Miss Molly? I think it was Miss Molly. No, it was somebody else. Selkie, yes, Miss Selkie sidetracked me. Okay, backing it up, coming back to we're coming back to the topic. So it's a good day. It's a good day. Ancestors. We talked about the last time that we talked, can't one know the runes without being a heathen? We're not going to have a conversation about runes. That would be an interesting topic to do for sure. But today's topic, we're going to stick to just ancestors in general. So for people who are new, we may get different new people that aren't normally around on Saturdays. But what we generally do is pick a topic, and we're talking about this. This is not going to do... while heathen's technically not a negative term in a Norse concept, just to clarify that. In a Christian context, right? So I was raised as a Christian, you would say, you know, somebody was a heathen that wasn't a Christian. But in a more northern tradition, a heathen would be an appropriate, from what I understand, would be an appropriate way of saying like you were a pagan. That would be a perfectly acceptable way to say that. Just to clarify that. But I think that comes down to your background and how that term may or may not have been used. It's definitely not used in a good context in a Christian way. But I would liken it almost to being similar to saying that you were a pagan. So anyways, I wonder if hopefully my deleting that actually deletes it. Somebody needs to scroll back up and see if it's gone. Thank you. I know it's just mom. She just gets so irritated with me. But you know, some of you that are mothers, like you get so proud of your kids. You get very, very proud of your kids. I'm very proud of thank you, Miss Jamie. I get so proud. You guys are my people. I like to listen to my little girl. Listen to my little girl. Anyways, okay. Which does lead us back to ancestry. You know, those ties are so strong and so important. But anyways, today we are going to be just talking about, just addressing the topic of ancestors, how we work with them, if we work with them, what we feel about working with ancestry work, how important that is to you, or not. Some people may not work with that at all. There are definitely cultures that work more directly with ancestors, that working with ancestry and people who have passed on. And my mother too. She said, my grandma called us heathens when we were being wild children. Yes, definitely. Oh no, Anna Teresa. Yeah, I know I know my brother had rules about that with Marines as well. There's some cultures that the idea of working with ancestral energy is just part and parcel. You certainly see this a lot, at least from the West. It seems like that this is, when you look at more Asian cultures, Oriental is not a correct term, more Asian cultures, it's just part and parcel, right? Honoring the ancestors is part of their culture, and it's not even thought twice about. I think there's actually a lot of cultures in which it's just part and parcel to how we deal with energy of those that have passed on, and it's not something that's really thought strangely about whatsoever. I would say in the West, there's still an honoring of the ancestors, but it isn't something that is quite as integral. Like, you're not going to set in sort of in a Christian tradition, which is a lot of where certainly people that are coming from more of a Western culture are coming out of a Christianized culture. You're not going to have sort of altars that might be set up for ancestors and things of that nature. We would be separated away. Yes, Day of the Dead is definitely, again, part and parcel. Now, I do think you see a little bit more of it in some Roman Catholic countries as well. So again, I think that there are a lot of cultures. So it may simply be Christianized cultures that you see less of it. Protestant, especially perhaps cultures that come out of a more Protestant-based Christian religion than even Roman Catholic, where you may see it a little bit more in some countries that there is this amazing amalgamation of Roman Catholicism and then their old shamanic practices that kind of get melded together. So myself growing up, we didn't have any practices of honoring of people who had passed. I mean, we honored them, we respected them, we told stories about them, which is a way of honoring our ancestors. But there wasn't, we're not going to light a candle to the ancestors or do anything like that. None of that kind of practice was something that I was raised in. However, because I was raised for a while in the younger years as a Roman Catholic, the idea of lighting candles and sending prayers up to heaven and things like that was certainly part of it kind of came in, something that got melded into my mindset in terms of sending up energy up for a lot of different reasons. So candles are something that attracts me a lot in usage, and it certainly is part of my practice with ancestors. I particularly, my particular belief is that we don't come into the world an island, right? We simply don't. We are not a disconnected, to me, again, everybody's got their own view. For me, we are not these insular, disconnected, single individuals that are just coming into our life. Last time we talked about past lives, which I believe in reincarnation. I believe in the soul's journey through many different lifetimes, but it's not just that connection across our own self, across many different lifetimes, but then it just starts to broaden out because we are here Kelly is standing here or sitting here right here and now because there was a long line of people that came before me. And so, and I believe that energy still exists, right? Just because they've passed on doesn't mean that I don't have access to their support and to their energy, that they aren't still there and active. So if you think about the tree, which is a concept that is very part and parcel to my belief system, if you have the branches of the tree, you have we can get a lot of clarity, your guides might be up there, divinity, if you work with divinity, your higher self. The tree trunk for me is where we stand, right? We sit with our back against the tree so we can go up into the branches or down into the roots. And for me, down in the roots of the tree is where all that ancestral energy lies. It's right underneath our feet, and it's always there. It's always supporting. It's always still lending lessons. It's still lending energy. It's a network of energy that we are connected to at all times. So, for me, the concept of ancestry is really important. It is not just blood ancestry either. So I think of our ancestry, and I was reading a book. I brought this out to show you. I'm going to do a book review on it, but I haven't finished it to read that. But I was reading this book called The Book of Hedge Druidry, which is by Joanna Vanderhoven. But I really liked the way that she taught. She has a section in here about ancestry, because ancestry is very important in Druidic practices as well. But she talks about the three types of ancestry that she would, kind of pulls everything down into three kinds of ancestry. I used to always go with the fact that there is our ancestry of blood, which is our genetic DNA, where we come from, right? We have it. No matter what, we were born of a female and a male genetic coding going together, and that spread out back behind us, whether we know who they are, we don't know who they are, we like who they are, we don't like who they are. We come from, this genetic history that's behind us. But then there's also ancestry of the land that you stand on, that your feet are on. And I also think about spiritual ancestry that has to do with some of the practices that we go with. I think the three that she uses is ancestry of blood, which most people will talk about, the ancestry of, I think she calls it land, of place. I say land, where your feet are on, as well as she uses the idea of the ancestry of tradition. You could also say inspiration. I think my friend Larissa from the Bars of Met, she uses inspiration. So those people who inspire us. So if, let's say, you're a painter and you're very much inspired by a particular painter who is passed on, you can give honor to and tap into the energy of that and kind of create that ancestry link of somebody who is of great inspiration to who you are, which I think is amazing. If you're a writer, there may be a particular writer that really resonates with you in terms of, and that can become, you can put, set a space in your altar, or however you might do things for that particular writer or that painter or that spiritual instructor. Maybe this, somebody you've read all of their books and they've passed on, or it's a tradition that have gone on, and you're going to put something up to kind of connect you to that particular energy. The name of this book, this whole book is not about ancestry. I just liked how she brought the three things. It's called The Book of Hedge Druidry by Joanna Vanderhoven, Hoeven. So far, it's a good book. I'll do a review of it when I'm done. I'm only part way into it, but it is interesting thus far. So that's kind of, there are different ways to think about ancestry. I've been doing a lot of work with ancestry of the land. If you, and I'm gonna say even more so than not just the United States, but because I'm from the United States, I'm gonna speak of the United States. But the fact of the matter is, pretty much nowhere that you live in the world today, the same people that are on it today have not been on that land forever. There are shifts and changes of migrations, interwoven connections of cultures that have been going on since there have been humans and land masses, right? So there are shifts and changes to cultures and ethnicities and all kinds of things, movements going on all over the world, and not just in the United States. But I'm from the United States, and so the United States, the majority of the population of the United States are transplanted people. They are immigrants, and they are coming from someplace else. Their families have come from somewhere else to the United States, and so their ancestry of land can be very scattered. But I think that while I think the tendency for people in the United States, definitely you'll see this in my family strongly, the tendency is to go back to our ancestral roots. So in my family, our Irish heritage was everything. My great grandfather, but he was more like my grandfather, he raised my dad. So he was around full-blooded Irish, parents from Ireland. Our last name was Irish. We're very, very much involved in our Irish heritage. Same thing with the Germanic. With my, we did have some solid grandparents. So I had one grandparent who was full-blooded Swedish, another that was full-blooded, actually probably two that were full-blooded German. So we had rather short. Our history of coming to the States was newer than what some people may have been. So we knew our direct heritage there. And so the tendency is to go back into those bloodlines, which I think is really important and something that I still do. But I think that if you're a stranger in a strange land, as I think the Bible says, I think it's also important to connect to the land in which you were born and you've grown up on and you're standing on, or that you've just moved to and your feet are planted on this physical land. And so that's a difficult thing for a lot of people. I know the difficulty is also there in Australia, places in which the history of the land that you're standing on is not your history, it's not your cultural history, but the stories of the land that I stand on is very much Native American or indigenous people, the trickster, coyote, and these types, all of these stories are soaked into the land. Now we bring our stories over as well, and you can see this intermingling. We talked about, I think, in folk magic, you can see this intermingling of stories of the new people coming over in the Appalachian Mountains in the United States. You can see this in stories like Charles DeLint, where you have the Native American lore meeting up with Celtic lore, because a lot of people come in came over and brought over a lot of the Celtic stories. And so you can imagine the little people from Ireland or the Fae coming over and into this new land where they're already the Fae of this land, and this amazing amalgamation that can take place. But so my point is that while I think instinctively go, or I certainly instinctively go to ancestors of blood, I think that connecting with the ancestry of the land that you're standing on, the stories of the land that you're standing on, is really powerful and really amazing. Something I've been working a lot with. And then again, the ancestor of inspiration, tradition, however you might want to work with that. It might be a spiritual tradition that you are connecting with. Again, it might be somebody that inspires you through their art or through their writing or their music or something of that nature, or that you can really tap into that energy and make that ancestral connection there. So those are the kind of the three ways that I look at ancestry. One of the things I found interesting, again, I did a walk through this. It's not up because I haven't finished it. But one of the things that I really liked about this guidebook that comes with this, and I'm only talking about this because I just last night did the review of it, so obviously it's fresh in my head. She gives you some exercises in the back of this. She calls it reweaving the web, remembering the ancestors. And she kind of walks you through making a constellation of ancestry. Even if you don't know, or even if you don't like your ancestry, she talks about how, sometimes we may have ancestors that we're like, I don't really want to get to know this particular, I don't want to connect with this particular ancestral energy. And she talks about like stepping backwards and kind of hopscotching over that and getting to where you can connect to somebody before that, before wherever they may have been sort of a breakdown in a ancestral line there. But so I thought that was really great because, you know, she does, you know, it's, a lot of this is based on Celtic. She also talks about divine ancestors versus blood ancestries. And that's another thing to think about with ancestry, right? So I've been talking about ancestors of blood, ancestors of the land that we are standing on, ancestors of tradition or inspiration. But then there's also this concept of divine ancestors. And I love the idea because I don't, and again, everybody's, you know, has their own way of working with things. I don't work with divinity as in gods and goddesses the same way that some people might, right? For me, it's a lot of archetypal. I do believe that the energy is there. I think a lot of it is the same energy that's being described in different ways. But the idea of these stories of divinity and that run through many different cultures and many different times, being divine ancestors are still part of our ancestry. I really like that. So anyways, she talks in the book, Caitlin Matthews talks about divine ancestors, blood ancestors. And then I just like this little section. I would like her to do like a whole book because this is just a guidebook, right? But I liked this little section that gives some ideas on how to sort of create a constellation of ancestors, whether you know who your ancestors, you may not. Some people don't know who their ancestors are. Some people don't know where they come from, or it's just all so mixed up that there's no real way to follow those particular lines in a blood sense. So she kind of walks through how you might be able to do that. So I liked that. I liked that addition that was in this. Of course, I also work a lot with Celtic lore and Celtic things, so this, you know, works really well for me. I have a couple decks here. I thought I would talk a little bit. So then, you know, the next question is, I know, and I'm missing all the good stuff. The only bad thing about these topics is I try to blah, 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 and stay focused, but means I miss out on a lot of things. I'm going to scroll back up in a second. But because I want to at least take the second step. So if we think about what does ancestry mean to us, right? If we think about connecting to our blood ancestors, connecting to the ancestors of land, connecting to traditions or inspiring you know, ancestry that we're going to connect that sort of ancestral energy points to, what did we do with that, right? So what do we do with that? You know, how do we then go about honoring there's going to be so many. I love to see what people do and don't do. I think that there isn't, unless you're in a particular tradition that has a specific way to do something, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer to this. It's just how do we do that? I do it in a couple different ways, and you're not going to be able to see, but I do have pictures of that on my Instagram not too long ago. This little I can't, it's hard to point there. Well, you can see this Mary. So this is a statue. This white right here is a statue of Mary, and it has a rosary on it. That shelf right there is sort of my space to my blood ancestry. So I have some candles there. I have little items from my grandparents, my great grandparents. I have a wedding ring from my great grandmother who was born in Ireland. I have a watch from my great grandfather. I have pins from one of my grandmothers. I have a charm from another grandmother. I have little bits and bobs from my grandparents. I think almost all of those are grandparents. I have pictures of my grandparents, my aunt that has passed on. I have a picture of my son who is passed on. So I have some pictures up of people in my family who have passed on, and certain crystals and things of that nature that you know, that relate to that, and so that when there are days when I don't light the candle every single day, but a lot of days I do. If I just, want to feel that or in need of that sort of connection there, I will light the candles there. So I have that specific place. Ancestors of the land. I've got a couple things. So I live in the United States. So obviously the stories and the cultures of my physical land that I'm standing on are mostly Native American. And I do have Native American history in my genetics as well, to the Ojibwe, which are part of the Anishinaabe peoples of this area. So I have been working with, I only do this on a personal level because there's some problems with, we're not going to go there with decks. That will be a whole nother topic in and of itself. But I've been working a little bit with the Vision Quest Tarot, as well as the Spirit of the Wheel meditation deck. And this is just a way for me to work with and connect with the stories of the land at the feet that I stand on. I've also taken a lot of my degrees in literature, and a lot of classes I took was with a beautiful, amazing Ojibwe teacher. And so a lot of the stories and the folklore and all of those types of things are things that I have done a lot of reading with. And so those stories and those types of things are where I sink into sort of the stories of the land that my feet are under. Of course, everybody's feet are going to be under different places in which they may want to use that. So decks are a way that I do ancestry work. Now, I know that a lot of people work with ancestors on Samhain. So October 31st, going into November 1st is All Hallows Eve. Depending on there's 3 days that can be taken there, depending on how you do so. Some of that crosses over into some Roman Catholic things as well. For me personally, Halloween is Halloween. I love Halloween. I love the kitschiness of Halloween. I love everything about Halloween. But for me, I use the dates of November 1st to the astrological cross quarter, which is November 7th. So November 7th is the astrological cross quarter point. And so that for me is a very powerful thinning of the veil, thinnest of the veil. And so I do a lot of very intentional work with my ancestors from November 1st through November 7th. I mostly, at least since I've gotten the deck, I mostly use the Santa Muerte Tarot. This is a deck, I don't ever use this for anything else. This is always for me used for ancestral work. And I will make salts I will make for that particular season, and it will percolate through those 7 days. I'll make tinctures during that time, offerings, things of that nature, and just really connect in with the energy of my ancestors in all shapes and forms on those 7 days. So for me personally, those are really important 7 days. Somebody else might, have more of a focus on other days of the year, depending on what that might be. Another tarot deck I'm probably going to use this year that was sent to me is the Marigold Tarot. I think along the lines of Santa Muerte, that this deck has a very powerful feel to it. I have not worked with this yet at all because I'm saving it for that. This just, again, for me personally, speaks very ancestral. So sometimes decks, right? And I think that, some people will have specific days in their culture, like the Days of the Dead. That is also, so you might have different days that you use for what those are. I also think it's great to take this into a personal space, right? So my son passed away on a specific date, right? He was also born on a specific date. The dates that my son was born into this life and left this life are really powerful key places for me that I will work with there as well. So you're going to also come up with your own personal your own personal dates that are going to work for you. But those are two that me, and then the other one that I've been working with a lot is the ancestral path. I see there are some questions, and I'm going to stop. I'm almost done rambling. The ancestral path tarot, I think, is fantastic because this sort of puts just the human race, right? Everybody in the human race that's behind us is in a very literal way part of our ancestry. And so this has, I did a walkthrough of this. This has the 4 suits into 4 cultures. You have, I believe, the Japanese culture. You have one of the Native American tribe people as well. You have Europe there with the King Arthur story. And I'm missing one. I think it's Egyptian. You have the Egyptian there. The suit of pentacles in this deck is just like amazing, just completely awesome. I've been working a lot with this particular deck as well. So those are the decks that I can't, one second. Of course, and I've done a walkthrough finally of this, but this is the Shaman's Oracle. But in terms of actually doing ancestor readings, which I do for myself all of the time, so that's another way. I definitely, what is ancestral energy? What is the advice from ancestral energy? Right, that is a question I use a lot, and I use the Shaman's Oracle all of the time. Connected with the Illuminated Earth Oracle, those two things together, ancestry of all the ancestries and ancestry of land with the Illuminated Earth, and it's like this perfect combo for me. So that's something that I use as well. Those are kind of the things that I use a lot, the things that I use a lot. So I'm going to scroll back a little bit. And see, if you have a question right this minute still related to this, please feel free to stick it in there. Again, we're just talking about this. There is not, there's not a right or wrong to this. It's interesting to see what other people do. Some people, like Christina said, some people don't remember or don't put emphasis on death anniversaries, and I completely understand that. For me, there's no escaping, at least with my son, there's no escaping it. And so there is, no matter what, that day has a significance. So that's simply there. And so I do honor that significance there. I also know with people, I have a friend of mine who calls them lament days. And he pulls a card sort of of a message on the lament days and celebrates both the birth and the lament of his family, which is really beautiful. So I think that, but some people don't, and they choose not to, which I think is just celebrating the life is an amazing thing as well. So I can certainly understand that. Salia, am I saying that? Salia? I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly, is Hispanic. And this is very large part of the culture, especially with the high pop here in LA. Everyone has a way of honoring the light of those souls that have evolved to the higher consciousness. Yeah, I think there's many cultures in which this is common, and part of it. And I think that some people, on the other hand, have kind of separated away from it and find a lot of comfort and a lot of strength in reconnecting to working with that. Chris uses blood, which is family, heart, I love the heart, friends, mentors, and teachers, and then the mind, such as cultural heroes and things. That's beautiful. And then the land is something that he works with separately, which makes sense. I'm trying to scroll up here, so forgive me because I don't ever do good about it. Claire, I think, is asking something about past life, but I think that was further up as well. Ancestral work is working with your history or family. Okay, I'm not going to try to fall into all of the topics or I'll get lost. I'm just kind of looking for any specific questions I might have lost. Anna Teresa says, silly questions. How does ancestor work differ from past lives? That's a really good question. And for some people, it may not differ at all. In some ways, I think it's just another section of that, right? I personally see past life work for me, as working with the souls, my souls, whatever, however you want to call it, my spirit soul, me, passing, passing through multiple lifetimes. So that is more of a specific line for me personally, so, my experiences, my direct experiences. Whereas ancestry work is looking, which of course, just think how exponentially large it gets. If you do, like me, believe in reincarnation, then you're that culture. This is why something like the ancestral path, I think, is so powerful, and understanding that. When you start, if you believe in past lives, your cultural ancestry can just shoot outward into the whole world. We're human beings who have lived many different lives and many different cultural heritages, so that if we add past lives plus ancestry work, it really does become the understanding that we're all interconnected, right? We are human beings, that cultural lines are not these black Sharpie markers that says, here is this boundary of this, and here is this boundary of this. This tradition is just from this thing. It's all moving and flowing and interconnection and interconnecting and sharing of information. If you start to watch the patterns of myths, for example, you're going to see the way that they overlap and blend together and flow and reframe and retell. It's a beautiful, my opinion, it's a beautiful symphony of interconnection. And so in the end, right, we're all connected. There's this huge, but just think about what that looks like, though. If you think about the tree of life, and if you think for a moment, if you close your eyes and you think about the roots of the tree, starting with just you, starting with your family or your current life family, but then that starts to go outward, 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 outward. Then you've got that like past lives going outward, outward, and think of those as a bunch of little lights. Like, it is just going to just turn into this most amazing network of lights and connections. And we are simply not these perfectly boxed up little islands of self. We're all interconnected. And so when we're working with ancestry, that can just shoot out into this huge well of support information. We think of the collective unconscious, which is something I do believe that we're all interconnected and we share information. We have access to knowledge and wisdom because of those amazing interconnections. It's really, yes, I love that. 78 cards tells a story. We are all earth walkers. And that's not even going into star seeds, which is somebody else's domain. I'm not even heading off onto another planet. That's just here. And it's pretty amazing. Yeah, let's just start singing. Let's do the hands. We are the world. Isn't that we are the world? We are the children or something. That was back in, I think, the 80s. But yeah. Sorry, I just went off onto to a tangent, but it is pretty amazing. I've heard the term ancestor worship, but I don't think remembering and honoring it does the same thing as worshiping them. I do think that that's probably a separate thing. Not a separate thing. I believe that's probably, there are probably interlocking areas there. But I think that that's probably a subset of honoring, gaining wisdom from, asking for energy, asking for help from, those types of things is probably different than a tradition or a religion that involves ancestor worship. But that's not something that I have any direct experience with, so I am certainly not going to go on to talk about that, because I don't have that's not my personal experience there. But I think that they probably things in ancestor worship and honoring ancestry and tapping into and gaining wisdom and insight from, I think some of it probably overlaps, as many things do. Okay. I'm sure there are any things that I'm missing, but that's, if you had a specific question for me, then, you can restate it, because I'm sure I am going to not be able to find it, because scrolling up never works all that well for me, because then stuff is still going on below it. So I think I'm going to stop trying to scroll back. But I think I did, I saw multiple people who maybe were talking about, what if you don't, I am lucky in that I do know a lot about my ancestry. I had from on my one grandmother's side, they had their genealogy back really far. And so my Swedish side, we have connections with people that are still in Sweden today, going way back, even when it crosses back into Sweden and goes over in that direction. There's my lineage is lined out really far there. On my Irish side, we have a little gap in between. We can go back to pretty far, and then we can go way back pretty well. There's like a little bit of gap in between that we haven't closed, but we have a pretty long lineage there as well, and know what our lineage is there. So I have the benefit of knowing a lot of stories and having at least some degree of information about my blood heritage back quite a long ways. Not everybody has that, and not everybody even probably wants that, right? Sometimes we find out things about our ancestry that's not so wonderful. I think that it's the fairy. No, I know where the fairy is, Christina. That one's the easier one. And so then how do you work with ancestral energy? I think that you still can. When I work with ancestral energy, so for example, if I was going to do a working, like I did a specific working of asking for healing, say, for my sister, I didn't think of a specific ancestor and say, this particular ancestor, can you come forward and give aid? It was more in that general sense. I'm a daughter coming to you for another daughter, which was my sister, and asking for aid, asking for support, asking for, whatever it's going to do. And it wasn't in a specific sense, right? Because if you're whoever you are, if you're a woman or you're a man, you are a son or you are a daughter of somebody back all of these generations. And I don't think that you have to necessarily have to know, okay, I'm calling on, great, 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 great aunt, grandma, many times removed off in Sweden somewhere, and specifically say, I know you're a healer. Can you please come forward and help? We can still, I think, tap into that energy, just as the cry of the heart that says, I am a daughter and I'm asking as a daughter for aid or for wisdom, or what those types of things are, right? Or whatever it is that we're trying to do. So I don't think that we necessarily have to have that specific knowledge to tap into things. That was one of the most powerful things, and I'm not going to go into the details of it or anything, but it was a very powerful experience. I do believe that our ancestor work doesn't have to be super impersonal. I don't think it's just a thing that's in our head. Like, I actually think that energy surrounds us, that we connect to it, and it's connecting all around us. And I think that like a child goes to their mother and asks for help, or like a child might run to a grandparent, if again, not everybody has good experience with parents and grandparents, but in the archetypal sense of what a parent or a grandparent should do, right? That I think that we can approach the ancestors with that same cry of their child. And I think that they answer that particular call. And I think it's really powerful. Anyways, I got a little personal. I'm pretty sure my heritage goes back to King Olaf. Actually, one of my great grandmothers was his wet nurse. That's pretty amazing. You had to be related to be able to do that. I think that's why ancestor work freaks me out a little bit. I've separated myself from family of origin and have made a family friend. But see, then you could, I mean, I think that, and Chris talks about that a little bit, Molly. We can, one of the things that I thought was really cool, again, about the guidebook from Caitlin Matthews, was she talks about skipping generations, where you say, this, I'm kind of putting a block out. I'm kind of putting a Sharpie marker line through, if you think about drawing out your family tree and just this person, this whole generation here, I'm marking those people off. Like, I'm not trying to have no desire to connect to them. And you can kind of skip back to a place in which that line hasn't been broken by, the problems that come together, where that sometimes familial lines are broken, sometimes for good reasons, right? And so kind of skipping past that to the further back ancestry, could be something that could be a road towards some degree of healing. I don't know. Obviously that's work for each person to try to figure out for themselves. So I would never, I feel like I can talk to Miss Molly, but I would never say what somebody should or shouldn't do, but that might be an option, because we don't all, I think that we sometimes forget that, because we do work with tarot and oracle archetypes a lot, mother, father archetypes, grandparent archetypes, these types of archetypes. We understand the greater archetype, but everybody's experience with mother is not the same. Everybody's experience with grandmother energy is not the same. Now, is it always positive, right? And so having to get past those specific incidences that really mold how we see those energies and try to get behind that, that's some serious and difficult, powerful work to do. So yeah, Miss Molly, hugs to you. People are talking about, I know people are talking about interesting things. Speaking of starseeds, how many people here felt like the whole Earth thing was a mistake? I have no clue what I know nothing of starseeds. We've talked about this before. And it's not that I don't, because I do believe in other cultures on other planets. Like, I don't believe the Earth is the only place with human beings on it, or beings on it, whatever they might be called. But I feel like I have enough. My path is definitely very earth rooted, even though I reach to the stars and can feel the stars and can work with the stars. At least in this point in my life, I don't really know anything about stars. It's not something that really pulls to me either, I think, because I am really earthy based in my walk. Molly says, yeah, well, I'm keeping my distance from actual relatives. I've been interested in connecting with my ancestry. Yeah. And a more generic, exactly, kind of stepping back away from those specific examples that have not been good and going backwards, right? But that's, again, that work, I think that because obviously our physical family, right, the family that is here around us, and even maybe a generation back, those can certainly have difficulty. I think one person has said, they learned a lot from even a section of the family that was not a good, it wasn't something that was a good thing or supportive energy, but they still learned a lot from that. But I think that becomes a very personal thing, right? So I wouldn't say to somebody who had been in an abusive situation, well, you learned a lot from that, right? That's for that person to be able to find what they're going to learn from that situation, what they're going to take away with it, and how they would work with that particular energy. I think that becomes such a very powerful and personal thing to work through. That sometimes you can step away from that for a minute because that's exhaustive, hard work. And so maybe stepping back from that into that further back ancestry that isn't so tightly tied to specifics might be something that will help in the middle of that. And I think I love what Jennifer says, and I don't know if it was Reclaiming Life you said it first. I'm just catching a piece of this. This is what happens when I have to talk and look at the camera. I love this idea of holding space for people's full humanity, and having done the best that they could do from the way they were raised and all of that kind of thing. Because sometimes even when you go back in, you know, when you step back even into ancestral lines, you can bump into things that, you know, aren't going to be that great. Like we all have those ideas of, you know, or those people that are, oh, that person was a horse thief, or, oh, that person was involved in the KKK. If you're, you know, if you have maybe roots in the States, or, you know, my family was from another culture, but they were really horrible people. They did X, Y, Z. You know, they're still part of our history, right? And there's a lot of things that we don't know about their stories either, about how they were raised and the culture that they were in, the survival things that they were trying to do. So I think that we can still honor our ancestors not as spiritual beings of perfect, you know, perfection, but humans, right? They're flawed human beings. And we as flawed human beings come from an entire network of flawed human beings. But I do agree with Chris, this idea of ancestral repair, which I think Caitlin Matthews talks about a lot, not a lot. It's a small guidebook, but she packs a lot into this guidebook, or concepts that make you say, oh yeah, you know, how can I heal some of these things that might need to be healing? Just like, because I do work with, you know, past lives, like when you're working with a past life reader, when I do, especially for myself, I know that what I'm working with is some leftover things that I've got to sort through. Like this is part of my task in this particular life that I'm in, to work through and heal some of those things. And in that, I think that pertains to ancestry work as well. I think again, if not everybody works with past lives or believes in reincarnation, but if you do, I do think these areas are really overlap and interconnect in many different ways. It's pretty fantastic. It's pretty, the world is a pretty amazing place, let's just say, and all of its glorious mess. Got interesting crystals. Oh yeah, can't help but connect with the earth. Yeah, crystals are an amazing way. I have a very specific ancestry. I mean, I work with different crystals, but I have a piece of Tibetan quartz that is a very, very bossy, a very bossy ancestral crystal. Let's just say. Okay, so we've been at this for a little while. I'm going to pause here for a minute. I hit on everything. I talked about the decks that I've mostly been using that way. Of course, you don't need a specific, let me just back up a little bit. If you want to get information or get a message from your ancestors, you do not need to have a specific deck to do so, right? I love decks. I have a lot of decks. I do have certain decks that have sort of gravitated towards, like the Weaver's Oracle, please. You know, that's just grandmother, you know, hit you upside the head grandmother energy. So there's certain decks that for me are very earthy decks, for me very often tie into work that I'm going to do with ancestry work. But you can just pick up any kind of deck. You're having a situation you're trying to deal with, or you just feel overwhelmed, and you pick up any deck that's around you, a tarot deck, an oracle deck, whatever deck's around you, and just, you know, Here's a card for the situation. Here's a card. Here's a piece of advice from my ancestors. If I heed that advice, I'm going to start to move in this direction. 3 cards, any deck that you want, and you can have, gain a message from Ancestry. You don't have to have any kind of specific deck to do that. That's an amazing way on an ongoing basis just to say, I want to tap into that energy. Just like for some of us, I grew up most of my life was here, but every weekend we spent with my grandparents in a little fishing town, and there was train tracks that ran through it. And so the sound of the train whistle blowing all of the time reminds me of my grandfather, who is somebody who has passed on, but who is always around me. I can feel him. I have dreams about him in a boat with my son all of the time, them chit-chatting together as I know they're doing. And when I hear the sound of a train, on my worst days, he's instantly there. And so we can set down with a deck of cards or with a crystal or whatever it is that you like to work with, some runes, some tokens, whatever you like to work with, and purposefully set yourself into that supportive space and get sort of a piece of advice, get something there. And it doesn't take anything that's ancestral based decks. You can use anything. So I just want to point that out, that you don't need ancestral decks to work with Ancestry at all. As we always say with everything, you need one deck or one set of whatever you like to work with. That's it. That's all you really need to do anything. And really, you don't even need that. You can just simply sit down with yourself. Drums, amazing. Use a drum. Okay, so I'm going to stop here for a minute. What are good past life or ancestor crystals? That's a good question. I don't think of it in terms of a specific type of crystal, although there are. I'm pretty sure Tibetan quartz is one of those. But I think that sometimes it's just a certain crystal that you have turns into that, which has been my experience. My experience have been Tibetan quartz, obsidian, dark black crystals, I guess, for me. I have a really dark, smoky quartz point, which does a lot of things for me, but it is very past life, very ancestral based as well. So those are 3, but those are personal. Somebody else might say, none of those things mean ancestry to me whatsoever. I just think earthy, root, chakra, dark, rooting, grounding crystals to me is what speaks to a past life, as well as especially to ancestral work. So those are the 3 that I've specifically worked for, with Tibetan quartz, obsidian, and a really dark smoky quartz. But I'm not a crystal expert. I just work with crystals how I feel like working with crystals. So that's not an expert advice. I do think if you use a spread focus on ancestors, yes, any deck, definitely so, Nikki is 100% right. I don't think you need anything. You don't need, it's great to have, and because I think working with ancestor energy is really important to me. So I do tend to gravitate towards decks that are very earthy based, very rooted, very grounded. So I do have decks that I go to with that, simply because that's something that is really part and parcel of my practice, my personal practice. So I'm gonna have decks that do that, but no, pick up what you have. This is the thing with any, the reason that we have all these amazing divination systems, all the way, however far back you can go to pick something up, to something that somebody might make up today in a modern sense. The reason that we have so many systems is that because people, human beings, as long as there have been human beings, we've picked up what is next to us and use it to connect to whatever it is we're trying to connect to, whether that is bones, whether that is runes or albums or tarot decks or playing cards, whatever is closest, we pick them up and we use them. And so you can pick up anything that's around you, a playing card deck, anything, to be able to work with the same energy as if you had a specific deck that says this is a great deck for XYZ, in my personal opinion. My obsidian pendulum is very bossy and chatty, but bossy. I have a lot of bigger crystals for my friend Patrick, and every time he tends to have crystals and then he passes them on, and I had a lot of them passed on to me. They're super bossy. So I don't know if he picks bossy crystals or if he's bossy, and so that kind of gets infused and they come across to me, over to me bossy, or if it's a combination of double bossiness, but I get a lot of bossy crystals from him. Petrified wood's amazing as well. Oh, yes. Yeah, for sure. And yes, I agree with Miss Molly. Quartz is good for anything. If I could only have one crystal, it would be quartz. Now, I have shifted a little bit, because if I literally could only have one crystal, and now we're going off topic, but our topic hour is over, so we're allowed to go off topic. Oh, I think the other piece is over there. It is quartz. I think it's amphibole. I don't know how to spell it. It's amphibole, but it is basically autumn in a crystal. It is the most amazing thing on the planet to me, because I am a girl at heart, born in autumn and massively in love with autumn. And it's just like autumn in a crystal form. And if I could only ever have one, it would probably be one of these, but if not, it would be quartz. Clear quartz is the most first crystal somebody should have, and it could forever be their crystal, because it's such an amazing thing. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'm going to peek at my phone because my boss has landed, but he's still a ways away. Okay, just making sure. He still has to get his rental car and then all the way down to my parents. So Reclaiming Life says, Lon Milo has a great book on the topic of how we can use and have used any random thing near us for divination. It's called The Book of Ordinary Oracles. That's amazing, Reclaiming Life. I will definitely look that up for sure. Kelly, will there be a chat tomorrow? No, there will not. I don't believe so. I don't know, because I don't think we're going to get home till really late. Because I know we have to go to dinner. All of us are going to go to dinner, and then we're going to go to a haunted house. So my guess is that I'm not going to be back till late, and I'm going to be exhausted. So that's why I'm doing it tonight. If I can pop up another one, I don't want to promise on Sunday. That's why I thought I'm just going to come in here today and at least have this chit chat. I know that I don't think I even talked about it, because I was so focused on the wedding that I wasn't focused on, oh, that's in my calendar. He's going to be showing up on Friday. And I know my niece and my daughter had plans for when he came into town, that we were going to go to the haunted house. So yes, it's just been one of those months. I feel like it's been a solid month of just not real stable Saturdays, and I didn't want to miss another one. So that's why we're here today. That's why we're here tonight. But I'm going to go ahead and pull a card for the week, because I need my weekly card. So why not? Why not? We can do whatever we want, can't we? So I'm just going to go ahead and pull... And we've been pulling a weekly card from the Art of Life Tarot. And I really love, so it sits up all week for me every time I sit down at my table. So, so I enjoy having it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it anyways. Obsidian, I do love obsidian. Obsidian for me, so we're going to just roll off a little bit into crystals. My hair is driving me nuts. It's really growing out. For those of you, I saw a couple pictures of when it was first cut, and because it was short when it was, I mean, it was short. I said, take everything off, but it's really growing out, and it's driving me a little bit crazy. Anyways, going back to obsidian. Obsidian for me, like if I were to say a healing crystal too, especially grief work. So for me, obsidian is so much grief work oriented. Then my black quartz, my smoky quartz, really dark smoky quartz as well. Black tourmaline as well. But I have a obsidian sphere that if I'm really having to do some heavy grief work, I can just sit cross-legged and have that in my hands or resting on my feet or whatever. And it is such a powerful healing crystal for me as obsidian. I know a lot of people go think about rose quartz, and I do love rose quartz, and I have a lot of rose quartz, but obsidian is just powerful. What happened to Miss Sherry? Nikki is suspicious of obsidian. I'm not laughing at you, Miss Nikki. I love you so much. But I'm like, are you even real? It could just be glass. But what is black glass, though? I mean, what is glass but part of nature that gets, you know, heated by lightning or some crazy thing happening, and it creates this? I mean, that wouldn't make it bad. I mean, yeah. I mean, like, technically, it would be, right? And that's okay. That's okay. It's still of the earth. I just love how you said that. I am suspicious of that, obsidian. I am suspicious of crystals that look like rainbow brights. Even though I know, like, I'll see some of them and I know that they're actual crystals from the earth, but crystals that are obnoxiously colorful, I think, no, I'm not buying it. I'm suspicious of those, Miss Nikki. Oh, Miss Sherry fell over a curb. Oh, and twisted your ankle. I'm so sorry, Sherry. I hope you feel better soon. Tell you, and I'm not calling you old, Sherry, because I don't know how old you are. But I will say I have fallen a couple times over curbs, and the older you get when you fall like that, it's worse. It gets worse and worse. Oh, it's too unicorn. Yeah, I don't trust it. I'm suspicious. Mr. Elron came just in time, or has missed all the crystal talk. He's like, you would not believe this man's crystal collection. But yeah, I'm very suspicious of crystals that look too colorful. And I know there are some amazing colorful things that come out of the earth, but if they look like, again, rainbow bright things, I'm just like, no, I'm not. I can't take you seriously with all your colors. That's kind of how I feel. Give me some black obsidian. I'm not going to fall for all those sparkly, pastel-y colored things. Okay, I'm pulling this before I shuffle this too much. I don't believe you can shuffle anything too much, but let's go ahead and pull this so I can set it down. All right, what do we need this week? I need help getting through the haunted house. So I hope it, oh, look what we get. Did we get this one before? I don't know. This is beautiful. I love this painting. So we have Temperance. I'm trying to read this. This is Woman Washing Her Feet in a Brook by Camille Pissarro. Pissarro, I'm not entirely sure. I apologize to these beautiful artists. The quote is by Heraclitus, and it is, "The unlike is joined together, and from differences results the most beautiful harmony." I feel like this does go with our whole topic of ancestry and connection, and how all of these disparate energies going out behind us all come together to make this harmonious you. You may not see yourself as beautiful harmony, but you are beautiful harmony, and it came from all this disparate energy that's like all coalesced and come together into this pinpoint that is you. I can make anything connect if I have to, but I don't think that's a stretch. The unlike is joined together, and from differences results the most beautiful harmony. I love this deck. I really love this deck so much. So yeah, temperance. So this week, staying balanced, staying harmonious, understanding that we can have disparate energy in the work this coming week, but we can, if we allow it, with this disparate energy can come together and be used in a beautifully harmonious way. So keeping that in mind, when you might feel like you're being pushed and pulled in a bunch of different directions, you have energy here, energy there, kind of all over, you can still make use of that energy in a way that is harmonious, in a way that just brings it all to center and balances. So I think that that is a great card to kind of stick out. And remember, you don't have to have the Art of Life Tarot to play along with us. You can take any of your decks and pull out the Temperance card and set it out for the week, and just kind of keep that card in mind throughout the week to see how that energy as a support system might be helpful to you throughout this week. I find them to be very helpful to me. Okay, I'm going to put these over here. See where people are rolling off to. There's a perspective stone. I'm not sure what they're talking about. Opals. Yeah, opals are very rainbowy. I do like opals. I do have a piece of moonstone that has rainbows in it. I also have the sweetest crystal. I have two sweet crystals. Most of my crystals are bossy, but I do have two sweet crystals. One of them is a moonstone that's super, super sweet. And one of them is a piece of, Elrond might be able to say, I always forget what this is called. It's not calcite. It's, can you see the, oops, I saw a rainbow. I don't think it's calcite. I think it's something spar, Iceland spar. Is that a thing? I think it's Iceland spar, which may be one of those things people are saying. Again, I'm not a crystal expert, but I use crystals, and I just, I listen to them. But this is actually one. Not all of my crystals has names. I don't name all my crystals, but a couple of them do have names. And this is Aria, and she does have a name, and she has rainbows in her, and she is the sweetest crystal on the planet Earth. I believe it. Anyways, for me, she's the sweetest crystal on the planet Earth. And then again, I have a piece of moonstone that is super, super sweet. But a lot of my crystals are bossy. Icelandic spar. Thank you, Leslie. Again, not an expert. Please do not ask me expert questions about crystals. I know I can feel crystals, and I know what I'm supposed to be doing with the crystal, but it's just my own personal experience. It's not based off of knowledge, which I think is a good way. I don't regret that. I do think, and I do go then look things up, but I always go with my own instinct first with how a particular crystal is going to work with me. I think that's more important than book knowledge on some things. Do you have a large obsidian? It does not surprise me, Miss Molly. That does not surprise me at all that you would be drawn to obsidian for sure. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Miss Molly knows. She knows what I mean. It doesn't. Yeah, I think that roll with that. Roll with that. Okay. Elrond asked me something. Did I practice today? I did practice today. I practice every day. If you follow my Instagram, I have a thanks to Mr. Elrond's helping me. I felt so stupid. Can we talk about how we feel stupid sometimes? Our friend Mr. Elrond here, and please don't he's not offended by the name Elrond. He allows me to say that. But space between the notes here is a pianist an amazing pianist and a teacher of piano. And I'm like, and plays on like amazing pianos and things. And I'm like texting him and I'm like, because I had a small budget. So I was trying to get my best bang for my buck to get a keyboard, so I could start I've taken lessons in the past. I grew up, playing. My mom taught us all how to play the basics. And I took a couple years of lessons on piano. But this is forever ago. And I'm like, my budget's little, but I want to get the best I can get for my budget. So I'm sitting here talking to him about, budget keyboards, and he's like probably playing over on baby grands. I felt like such a ding dong, but he was amazing help. And yes, I have practiced every single day since. I had a sore muscle, which I think is because I don't have my height of my stool the correct height. I'm probably holding my hands weird, is my guess, because I literally had like a sore muscle from practicing. But I think it's not from my fingers practicing. I think it's from my position. So I think I'm going to have my daughter take a picture of me from the back so that Elron can tell me what I'm doing wrong. But anyways, it's good to have friends that even if they are like experts in their field, they don't like roll their eyes at you when you have, when you ask them, is this one okay for this amount of money? Somebody asked me, reclaiming I said, what type of keyboard did I end up getting? Well, what I ended up getting is I ended up getting a Williams Allegro 3 is what I ended up getting. Because what I was looking for was a stripped down. I don't need it to play 500 sounds. If you look at keyboards, they like have drums and kits on them, and it can play 5,000 different tones. I'm like, I don't need it to play 500 sounds. I need it to play a piano sound, and I need it to feel good, the keyboard, but I need it to do so in a really cheap package. So that's not easy. That is not easy to find. This is what I've always been taught. You take whatever the money that you have and you say, you really do your research and you get the best that you can get for that, accepting that there's going to be something far better, $500 more, $1,000 more, but just accept that what's the best that you can get for that price amount. So I'm really happy with it because it has weighted keys. I did learn to play on a regular acoustic piano. And so I didn't want it to have a ton of bells and whistles. I just wanted it to have weighted keys, which is hard to get sub 500, and I was definitely sub 500. So it was hard to find those weighted keys, and I'm really happy that I did that. It sounds better on the headphones than it does in the speakers, but that's okay. It's just for me practice. And yes, space. I have a very small apartment. Anyways, that was a ramble because I don't know why we started talking about that. I think Elrond asked if I had practiced, but I've been practicing every single day. Not just songs. What I'm working on, I do scales because scales are important, and some note reading because I'm having to remember the notes. I do know how to read music, but it's been a very long time. So I'm doing some like note reading practices and then scales. And then I'm working on Moon River as my first song because, come on, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Moon River. Like, it has to be Moon River. I'm working on Moon River, and I can't remember that there's another one that I'm working on. But I'm just working on 2 songs and then scales and things. I see what's going on here. Yes, we don't call them trolls. We love trolls. I will learn a Christmas song to play for our Christmas sing-along. I definitely will. It won't be as good as Elrond's Christmas playing, but that's okay. Okay, so we are off into La La Land of of pianos. I think the key though is it's like thinking about what fills your bucket up, right? I think it's also, my friend Bart had sent me a message or a link to I'm not going to be able to find it. I'll try to find it. I mean, I can find it from him, but I don't think I can put it on here. But anyways, he had sent me a link. When I told him I got a keyboard, he sent me a link to like a comic strip where, you know, and I've heard this of authors as well. And I think it even says it in the comic that authors, you know, if you go to a book signing, they hear over and over again, I have a book in me. I used to love to write when I was younger. I could write a book if I would just sit down and write a book, right? They hear that over and over again. Whereas a pianist, probably, as I'm sure Elrond or a teacher or something like that, somebody that plays the piano, as this person in the comic strip was like, he hears over and over again that I used to play piano when I was a kid, and I wish I hadn't stopped. Right? Same thing about a lot of different things like playing guitar. A lot of people said, I really wish I had learned to play the guitar. I really wish I had picked. I mean, I literally want to kick myself sometimes. I wish I had painted when I was younger, but instead I said I couldn't, or I let life get in the way. And then this comic strip goes into we only have X amount of time in the day. We have to work. We have to do those things like feed ourselves and our children, all those duty things. So that leaves us with this amount of time left. And the question is, what are we going to do with it, right? And it shows in this comic strip, endlessly scrolling through Instagram or something like that, or, you know, sitting there and channel flicking like with this zombified days like we all do, where we just end up having these hours of the day. We all have time and to do something. It's just what we choose to use it, which is something I really do believe, because it was the same with me with learning to play guitar. Everybody has 30 minutes a day, so nobody can say they don't have time to learn how to play guitar or to play the piano or something like that. Because everybody, if you let go of some of the stuff that eats our time up, we all have time to do the things that we want to do. But are we making time for that important thing? Because I just know that at the end of our lives, we're not going to say, boy, I wish I had spent more time channel flicking through the television, right? But we will say things like, I wish I hadn't stopped playing the piano, or I wish I had written that book, or I wish I had learned how to play guitar. I wish I had learned how to paint. Like those kind of creative expressions are the things I think that we start to get to the end of things and we think, oh, you know, why did I stop doing that? And so I kind of had that moment of I used to play the guitar, piano. I used to be able to read music. I wasn't amazing. My sister, and this is the thing, we're just going off into Kelly therapy. This is the thing. Painting was the same thing. My sister and my father were amazing painters. And I just figured I couldn't do it. And I told myself, that's not my thing. I'm a writer and that's my thing. I can't paint. And so I didn't do it. Now I absolutely love painting. And I wish I hadn't told myself I couldn't do it. Same thing with piano. My sister is amazing. She's a natural, right? She's an absolute natural. So she doesn't have to work as hard. She plays all over the piano and she sounds like she's a concert pianist. She took a ton of lessons. She's one of those kids that took her lessons seriously all through high school and has continued to play. And she's amazing at it. But I let that say to myself, I'm not a natural, amazing player like her. It's not my thing. Why should I do it? Versus just do the work and you can learn to play anything you want. So it's just so sad that we tell ourselves we can't do things and then we just don't do them. It really is sad. And that's the things that I think we're going to regret, not, you know, whether we spent 3 hours channel flicking. Anyways, now I am now on a soapbox. I've been playing the tin whistle. Oh, I love that reclaiming life. Highland bagpipes and hand percussion, much more often than piano keyboard. That's amazing. I played the recorder, and people laugh all the time. I played the recorder since I was in grade school, but it wasn't through like grade school recorder. There was a Jewish woman. We lived in a very Jewish community. Almost everybody in the apartment complex I grew up in were Jewish. The synagogue was nearby, and there was this amazing Jewish lady, and she played an alto recorder as in concerts, like in symphony. And she taught me for years to play, and it was absolutely an amazing experience. And we let that go with youth. There's so many things we let go, and we shouldn't. Anyways. Yeah, I really do believe that, Leslie. I do believe people have natural talents. I've seen it. I mean, there are people who have natural inclinations towards things, and so it's easier for them. But I do believe that anybody can learn to do just about anything. They may not end up being, on American Idol or be concert pianists or whatever, but they can learn to do something and gain joy from it. So yeah, stepping off the soapbox. I feel I feel like I've been on a soapbox for a while. I do apologize. And it's good, exactly, Al. Good point. It's very good for you. It's good for your fingers too. It's good for your fingers. For arthritis, it's good for your brain to keep making synapses connections and things like that. There's all kinds of benefits to keeping our brains engaged, right? I had a beautiful this. I'm sorry, Miss Wellsong was talking about recorders. Tenors she had a tenor as well, but she gave me the most beautiful. It was a German-made wooden alto recorder, and if I ever can find it again, I will repurchase it because it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing sound to it. Oops, there's my boss. I'll have to wrap things up because he's probably on his way back. But like making a deck. I'm just waiting. Yes, Mr. Elrond his deck is out called Spirit Doodles. It's over by my piano. I have put it. I actually have an Oracle deck for my piano, and because I think Elrond would agree it's perfect because it's based off of sound and vibration, and there's music that's put in. I'm waiting for my physical copy of the guidebook to come. I ordered it because the guidebook is just amazing. So I'm waiting for that to come in, and then I'll do a walkthrough of it. But it's sitting over next to my piano, and I pull a card and I stick it in the little stand for practice. For my practice, which has been amazing experience. The very first card I pulled with it, the song that was associated with it was I Am Moana, which is my song. It's my personal soul song. So, and then that was put in there for me. I have on good authority, and it was the first card I pulled. Anyways, life is interesting. Somebody said, that is where mine are from Germany. Whale Song says the tenors as a Mac. Yeah, I can't imagine. I don't think I've ever actually played a tenor, but I love the altos. I'm in love with the sound of an alto recorder. If I didn't live in an apartment, and that's the other thing about a keyboard is so nice is because I can play it at 1 or 2 in the morning. I just put the headphones on and nobody can hear me, and I can play to my heart's content. So that's a nice thing if you are living in an apartment like I am, where sound is an issue. That is a benefit to a keyboard. I can also play the recorder, the flute, piccolo. I love the piccolos. I used to play an Irish whistle. I used to play an Irish whistle as well. I do love flutes and whistles and things. I played the flute. So I played the alto recorder, and then I played the flute from grade school all the way through high school, and then past high school, I played it in a religious band, like a church band that you play songs and stuff. So I continued playing well after high school. So it's just ridiculous. I mean, that's a lot of understanding of music and rhythm and reading music and all of that kind of stuff, just to have that just go away because you get old. I mean, what is that? Why do we do this to ourselves? Anyways, back to my. Apparently, that's a big soapbox for me. Apparently, it's a big soapbox. Oh, can we talk about another thing? I'm going to plug this because look at how exciting this is. Friends, people are doing amazing things. I don't know if you guys know Stephen Bright. You should. He's got a YouTube channel. I absolutely love his YouTube channel. I just like Stephen. He did the Spirit Within Tarot. Or am I saying that right? Oh, shoot. I think it is the Spirit Within Tarot. I can picture the box and now my head's blanking. Anyways, he's like the sweetest person on the planet. And he started with Kim. Oh, I'm going to bet Kim Arnold. He started a magazine called the Esoterical, like for tarot and oracle things. I mean, how cool is that? You just start a freaking magazine and look. There's a digital version, but I had to get the print version because, I mean, how cool is that? Oh, I just got this today and I was so excited. As soon as I saw it was up for purchase, I had to get a physical copy because that's just so cool. There's just so many creative people out there in the world. It's pretty cool, right? That's one of the cool things I think about YouTube and social media and things like that, is you just see that there are so many creative people. There's so many people out there in the world. I mean, everybody has something to say, and figuring out what it is and how you're going to say that, whether that be through a deck, or that be through making a freaking magazine, which is so awesome, or writing a blog post, or, you know, for some people, what they have to say is said through a garden, right? It doesn't have to be a magazine or a deck or something like that. But I think figuring out what we have to say and how we have to say it is such an important thing. I mean, let's go back to Joseph Campbell's Following Your Bliss. It's when you put your passion into something. I know that's next on my list, Elron. Tom Benjamin just banged out a Halloween deck that's just insane. It's got a suit of pumpkins. I'm being distracted by the creative people out there in the world. That's next on my list. It is definitely coming. But anyways, figure that out. Like, it doesn't have to be a deck. It doesn't have to be any of these things. It might be playing piano. It may be being out in the garden. Like, I know people who, you know, being out in the garden with their hands in the dirt is just as creative and energetically as playing an instrument. Or I think about my mother, watching my mother with children. And I know there's a lot of women who were mothers as a professional career, so to speak, and it's not their choice, you know, it wasn't so much their choice. My mother was a born mother. Like, that's what she was made to do in this world. And it fulfills her to the degree in which anything, you know, art or music might fulfill somebody else. Being a mother and a grandmother does that for my mother. And watching her with children is like watching somebody paint or watching somebody play the piano. And so you can do that in gardening. You can do that. And where is your passion? What is it that really brings in that feeling of joy and creation and passion there? Figuring out what that is and just following it and pursuing that, whatever that might look like, is exciting. That's exciting. I find myself all the time. The YouTube channel I'm watching is called Living Simply in Alaska, or something like that. It's pretty close to, it's something like, the title of their channel is something like Living I think it's called Living Simply in Alaska. It's this it's a young couple, this guy and a girl. They're not that old. They look like they're in their late 20s, maybe early 30s. And they're like gardening. They're like living off-grid in Alaska. Am I ever going to live off-grid in Alaska? No, I don't like to be cold. They're so passionate about everything that they do that they're amazing to watch. Watching people do what they're impassioned about, even if it's just like stuff that you have zero interest in, that's what's cool, right? Just to watch somebody who's in their zone, whatever that zone might be. Anyways, reclaim it for simply journaling as a way of getting your thoughts out. Ideally, fountain pens. Yes. My favorite ever, cheap fountain pen. That's my baby. My baby. I need to get about 20 of these. And I know the moose are amazing. Anyways, I got so sidetracked. Apparently the second half, we can call the second half of this as Kelly getting on soapboxes and waxing poetic about people doing what they love to do. I need a big, stiff drink after all that rambling. We need to pull another card. Let's pull another card. I'm going to pull from this deck because I'm really playing around with this deck and getting to know it. So I'm going to pull again from this Oracle of Whispers because I can. I'm trying to keep track of this in the game. My son wants to. Sorry, Sherry. I'm rambling all over the place. Who knows what lurks in the heart of men? The shadows know. I don't even know if that's what Brienne's talking about. But when she says only the shadow knows, that feels like from the shadow. It was an old an old radio show, which I know I've talked about before. Oh, and I'm throwing cards around. Energy. Oh, look at who's around us. People around us. Uh-oh. I think they're now getting ready to talk about, they're rolling off talking about pens. I think they're just basically, we're talking about fountain pens, and I think they're still on the Halloween Marseille. Good topics, both. Feather FX. I've not heard of that one. Pilot Kakuna with, that's a ink. Noodlers, I have used Noodlers ink, but in the color Feather FX, I'm guessing that's the name of the color. Just giving back up while I shuffle. Okay, so let's pull. So I can let you people go for your Friday night. Ooh, it's a black that doesn't. The Noodler's ink that I used was a black that doesn't bleed, or doesn't. It's waterproof. I think it was called like Bulletproof, something. Bulletproof. It might have been bullet. I don't know. I'm thinking of Bulletproof is the name of it. I'm pretty sure it's a Noodler's also. It's a black ink. My second favorite other fountain pen is the this one. I love the way this one writes. This is the Midori. It's brass, and so it's getting all nice and aged. Like the brass is turning from obviously using it. This has a little bit thicker nib than this one does, so I love the thinness, but this is my favorite to write with. And I just love the brassness. I'm a big fan of brass, and those are my two favorites. But I don't have like I do have a few other ones, but those are my favorites that I use all the time. Miss Molly says, for me, I wish I had done more before my hands. Can't use a screwdriver or a kitchen knife without being yeah, see, that's what's so hard. But there's other things you can do, Miss Molly. There are other things that you can do, but it's the truth. I mean, we're not promised anything in life, right? I think we mistake the fact that we'll do that later, right? We're going to do that later. I'm going to be happy later when XYZ happens, or I'm going to take this up later when, and then things happen. Like we aren't promised a perfect life, and we're not promised any amount of time, and we're not promised, life is not fair. And unfortunately, it's something I talk to my kids about all the time. Life is not always fair. And so to put off things for tomorrow is never in our best interest, but we all do it. We all do it. But good point, Miss Molly. Okay, I'm going to stop looking at the chat. The chat's very distractive, or else I'm just very distractible tonight. I feel like I'm wound up energetically. Are we close to a full moon? I don't know. Does somebody say tomorrow's a full moon? I get really wound. I think did somebody say tomorrow was a full moon? I think somebody said that. Let me pull up my favorite moon app. No, we're getting close. When's the actual full moon? Oh, I messed it all up. Okay. We're not going to know. Full moon in air. Oh, that doesn't surprise me. That does not surprise me. Some people say that they have energy dips in the full moon. A lot of people seem to say that they get energy dips in the full moon and have a lot of energy at the new moons. But we've talked about this before. I'm the complete opposite. I get really wired up around the full moon, and I have dips during the new moon, which is interesting. Yeah, I think that's pretty standard, Nikki. I think I'm just wired backwards. I think I'm just wired. I got my wires crossed somewhere down the line, that's for sure. Okay, let's see what we got. And I have the whole deck upside down. So we have sound, listening. We have going off on a journey. And then we have this last one here. I'm going to have to look this one up. This to me speaks of the High Priestess, but I believe the card is something different. But first I'm going to talk about for me, I see the High Priestess. Although you could also say Temperance, because you definitely see the water on one side here. But with all this moon energy, it feels very High Priestessy to me. So I'm going to first say what I think, and then we'll look it up because it's a new deck for me. So the three cards that we have is a card for listening, because there's a card for each one of the senses. And so this one, of course, is focusing on what we can hear, closing our eyes and seeing and hearing and listening to the call that is around us, which is amazing. I think I've talked about this before, but for me, I'm so sorry. I'm just like, my hair is driving me insane. I've talked about this before, that one of the most amazing experiences for me is to lay down flat on the floor, like in the corpse pose in yoga, just like where you're laying really flat and really loose and really comfortable, and close your eyes and have either headphones on if you're in an apartment like me, or if you're someplace where you can just blast music, but putting on like, whatever kind of music that speaks to your soul, and just closing your eyes so that you're just immersed in that sound is the most amazing experience. Like it's like a journeying experience, and really tapping into the amazing listening to those sounds that are around you, that I just think is amazing experience. And I think about that when I see that card. But the idea here is we need to be paying attention. We need to be listening. We need to be using all of our senses, but right now we need to listen. There are messages all around us telling us and guiding us in where we need to go in order to really tap into our power, that deep well of power that's within us, not necessarily outside of us, not necessarily us physically, but that well of power, that well of intuitive energy that's within us. We need to stop and listen. This is one of the things that this is probably speaking to me, so I apologize. You may have gotten a reading based on my own problems, but I have a real hard time for two reasons. One, I have tinnitus, so my ears ring. I mean, this one can ring pretty badly. So keeping music on low, keeping fans blowing, I always have a fan going, it helps with the tinnitus. But also, since my son passed away, having things completely quiet, I struggle with that because it's just one of those things. Then I start to think or go into some grief work and things I maybe don't need to be or want to be in that space. So I have found habits formed since my son passed away of keeping sound on all of the time. If we're never quiet though, we miss so much, right? We miss those whispers that we need to hear. We miss those those intuitive knowings. We miss those things if we're constantly having the TV going, constantly having the radio playing, even if it's amazing, wonderful music, constantly having something, YouTube videos going in the background. Like I think a lot of times in a modern sense, we fill up our world with sound. But when we do that, what messages are we missing out on because we won't have a space for being quiet? It doesn't mean you have to all the time, but can you create a space in which you can be quiet? Because what are you going to hear that might take you down the road to really tapping into what you need to tap into power-wise? So that's the message that I get. But really quickly, I'm going to see what this card actually is, even though that's the oracle reading for myself. I know people have to leave. Goodbye. Thank you for showing up for me. It's a French website, Nikki. And you have to look at, it's interesting, it's like called Lubyloon, LUBYLOON, I think, .com, is who sells this. It's called the Oracle of Whispers, but it's in French. I don't speak French, so I would slaughter it. But anyways, I'm going to see what the actual name of this card is, because I still hold to my own interpretation, because that's one of the things I really like about this deck is there are no titles on it. And so you can just go with what works for you. And so that's really amazing because it allows for you to do that. But let's just see what it was meant to be here. I'm really enjoying this deck. It's one of those decks that make me feel old because it is really has a very modern feel to it, but then it also doesn't. I've been getting amazing readings with it. It's actually the Visions card, which I feel is High Priestessy, right? It's that going in and getting visions, which works for me. I still feel like it's High Priest. It's visions through the third eye is how I see that. So there we go. Anyways, that's our message. This is just I really have been amazed by this deck. The quiet time is when God speaks. Yes, it's that still quiet voice, right? We don't get a chance to hear the still quiet voice if we never have things quiet. How do you get the print version? I guess I might be stepping into. I apologize, Miss Molly, because you're probably having a conversation and I have no clue what you're talking about. I know it is Havana, Miss Sparkle Divine. It's definitely. I wouldn't probably have purchased it because it's beautiful, but I do tend to feel that those feel very modern, and I don't feel overly modern when it comes to decks. But then I would have missed out on a deck I hold to what I said in my quick walkthrough, is that it feels like an oracle, but it feels more like a fortune-telling deck. It has that old school fortune-telling feel to it, but with also that layer of more of a modern oracle. So it's a kind of, and it is cheap for indie deck standards, Nikki, and it feels amazing. And it has that gorgeous matte gold on it. I don't know if she's just able to, in France, get cheaper printing of something that gorgeous, but I was surprised when I saw the price on it too. Anyways, that's our message. I will rewatch this video, but is it annoying if I ask where you found your glasses? No, it's not annoying. I think these were just at, I'm trying to think, it's a local glass, it's a cheap glasses place. I keep wanting to say Books A Million. I got my glasses at Books A Million. It's not. Eyeglass World. That's where I got them at. Eyeglass World. Yeah. Thank you for asking, though. Okay. So, cherish the link. Cherish the love. Let's go to Madonna. Nikki. So somebody I know asked, are we going to do a Halloween-a-thon? Yes, we are definitely going to do a Halloween-a-thon. It's the 12th. I don't know the dates. It's going to be close to Halloween time. I try to get it within that Halloween week, but I don't have the exact date yet. I promise I will try to get it quickly and post it up there. But we do a 12-hour chat. We have done it. This will be the 4th year. I believe we've decided this is the 4th year. And we have people who have stayed every single hour of all those years. So it's a bit of a tradition around the Truth and Story channel. And that will occur. We are not going to break the cycle. So I will try to nail down that date so that we can have it. So it's a 12-hour long chat. Elron is putting a vote for not the 28th, but I have no clue. I have not sat down and really looked to see. I'm putting Elron votes no 28th, but I can't promise anything. I just got to kind of do what Yes, Gentlefire. Yes, you have. Yes, you have. There's a few people I think who have hit all of them too. And I did lose my glasses. I found them. I talked about that at the beginning. They were in a bag that I took to my sister's, and I don't ever go anywhere, so I never thought to look in that bag. And I took the bag out to take stuff to my niece's wedding, and I found them sitting in the bag. And I would have, if it wasn't for my niece's wedding, I never would have found them, because until the next time I went away for the weekend, which would probably have been a year from now. So, very, very glad to. I was so excited because I was really at that point where I was like, I'm going to just have to buy a new pair of glasses, and I do not want to do that when I have a perfectly great pair of glasses somewhere. Anyways. Okay, folks, I'm going to go. I need to wrap this up because I need to run over to my parents, who thankfully don't live too far from me. I appreciate that there were some people to come hang out with me tonight. I know it was last minute, but again, if you missed the first part, this last month has been bad on Saturdays. Again, I'm blaming most of it. It was my niece's shower, then it was my niece's wedding, and I just forgot the fact that my boss, and he's a family friend of my parents, and so I knew he was coming in. So tomorrow I shall be eating well and going to a haunted house, and I just wanted to have a conversation and do a chat anyways. I didn't want to miss it again, so that's why we're popped on tonight versus tomorrow. So I am really happy that some people could hang out, and some people that we don't always get to see. And it is somebody said that earlier on. It is nice to shake the dates up a little bit sometimes, because it does allow people who can't always do it on the times that we do it. And I always mean to try to mindfully shake things up, but it usually just gets shook up by life. But anyways, I appreciate hanging out with me. I love the conversation. I wish you all an absolutely wonderful rest of your weekend. rest of your weekend. Remember temperance. If you're feeling crazy energy around you, try to harness that into a balanced way. That was our one message there. And maybe try to do something this week. And you can check back with me next week, but like try to do something that you haven't done in a long time. Maybe you absolutely love coloring. Pick up a freaking coloring book and color for the joy of it. Like if you like to get your hands in the dirt and it's been like months since you put your fingers in the dirt, go plant something. Like do something that brings you joy. Life is short. Life is short. Do something that brings you joy this week. And tell me what it is. We can talk about it next week and see how everybody did. I'll be playing the piano. I'll be practicing. But, you know, think about what brings you joy, and do something that taps you back into that, you know, place where we had so much potential before we just turned off. We said, I don't have the time for that, or I can't really do that. Slip back into that place, that liminal space that we've talked about, where anything can happen, because I think we all deserve that bit of joy. Anyways, goodbye, everybody. I will talk to you later.